الضالين. لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها، لها ما كسبت وعليها ما اكتسبت. ربنا لا تؤاخذنا إن نسينا أو أخطأنا، ربنا ولا تحمل علينا إصرا كما حملته على الذين من قبلنا، ربنا ولا تحملنا ما لا طاقة لنا به، واعف عنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا، أنت مولانا فانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. استغفر الله استغفر الله استغفر الله استغفر الله استغفر الله. اللهم أنت السلام منك السلام تبارك. اللهم أعنا على
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا وحبيبنا محمد المصطفى صلى الله عليه وعلى آله ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. Carrying on with our series of the disease of the heart. In our last week's class, we talked about Bab al-Sabr, the chapter on patience and being patient at the time of difficulties, being patient. We talked about the hadith where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, patience is, the main part of patience is when the calamity actually strikes you. And inshallah, this week we will carry on, and the kitab, the chapter that we were talking about is Bab al-Muraqabah, the chapter of reflecting and contemplating. As we know, our life is such that we go through day-to-day events, and until we don't stop and think and reflect and analyze the effects that we have, the events that we have in our life, it's just events that take place. But Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam teaches us that a person must stop and think and judge himself and hold himself accountable and learn lessons from the different events that happen in our lives. And this was a sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would take time out and reflect and contemplate even before Islam. And we talked about just earlier that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he would go up the mountain of Nur into the cave of Hira, and he would sit there and contemplate and think. And we also see that Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam later on in his life, when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was in Madinah Munawwara, the hadith of Anas bin Malik radiallahu ta'ala anhu, where Anas bin Malik, a 10-year-old boy, he says that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to me that at the end of the day, look into your heart. Think. Look into your heart and see if there's hatred for anybody. And if there's hatred, forgive them. And this, as beautiful as this hadith is, where the Prophet ﷺ is telling us that make sure you go to sleep with a pure heart for everybody, the beauty of the hadith is yet to come. Where the Prophet ﷺ tells his 10-year-old boy, why? Because if anybody has doubt in their iman, if anybody has doubt or in the religion of Islam, this hadith is sufficient to see the beauty of Islam. That the Prophet ﷺ says, Anas bin Malik, why do I want you to do this? Because I, Muhammad, I do this every night. So just think about that. In the daytime, they throw stones at him. At nighttime, he looks in his heart and he forgives him. In the daytime, he's praying in sajda, and they get the intestines of a camel and put it on his back. And at nighttime, he looks into his heart and he forgives him. In the daytime, he's praying, and Abu Jahl comes from behind, wraps a cloth around the neck of Rasulullah ﷺ and lifts Rasulullah ﷺ off his feet. And at nighttime, he looks in his heart and he forgives him. In the daytime, Rasulullah ﷺ's son just passed away, and they mock and they ridicule Rasulullah ﷺ by calling him Abtar, that your family tree is cut off, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so disappointed and so mad at you and so angry at you, that your family tree, your lineage is cut off. And at nighttime, he looks into his heart and he says, I forgive you. And this shows us that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would, at the end of the day, stop, break down the events, break down and go back to the basics and analyze his life. And the hadith here that's mentioned, a very beautiful hadith, and this hadith is narrated by Umar bin Khattab radiallahu ta'ala an, where Umar bin Khattab said, بينما نحن جلوس عند رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, a very famous hadith, that one day we were sitting in the gathering of Rasulullah صلى الله عليه وسلم. There are so many different lessons to be learned from this hadith. He said, we were sitting in the gathering of Rasulullah صلى الله عليه وسلم ذات يوم اطلع علينا رجل شديد بياض الثياب. A man came, and this person struck out from everybody else. And Umar al-Dan, he started to notice different things about this person. Shadidu biyad al-thiyab, that his clothes were sparkling white, which told us different things. That he comes into this gathering, and he doesn't look tired. He doesn't look like he's had a long day. He doesn't look like that he's about to fall asleep. But his clothes are completely white. He hasn't traveled. Right? Why? Because when a person travels, their clothes might get dirty. وَشَدِيدُ سُوَارِ الشَّعْرِ, that his hair was jet black. What does that tell us? What do we learn from there? That if his hair is black, that means he's young. Right? And in this hadith, this person that's coming to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he's coming to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam as a student. And we learn that what is the characteristics that that a student should have. What are the conditions, not conditions, but what are the preferences that a student should have? And we see that when a person comes into a class, number one, his clothes should be clean. He should be ready for class. When I used to teach children in middle school, a lot of times they will have their hand in their sleeve like this, or their hat bent like that. And we ask ourselves, sometimes we come to Jummah like this, where our clothes are from the night before, or they're not ready, or we don't look like we're there to learn. And here we see this person is coming with clean clothes. And where we expect our imams to look professional, we ask ourselves, how do we come to that same gathering? And then the second part, that his hair was completely black, meaning that a person should learn knowledge. The preferred time to learn knowledge is at the earlier age. However, at the same time, we see that a person shouldn't use this as an excuse. That mera time to nikal gaya. Ab kya yaad karenge? Ab kya, my time is gone, what will I learn now? Right? Whereas the companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, majority of them were elder, and they learned the knowledge from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam at a later age. La yura alayhi asr safar, that you couldn't see any signs of travel on him. He didn't look tired, his clothes were fresh. Wa la ya'rifu minna ahadun, and none of us from Medina, we didn't know who this person was. So he wasn't from outside, because otherwise he would look like he would have signs of travel. And none of us, we didn't know him. And he came into this gathering, حتى جلس على النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. He came all the way to the front. فأسند ركبتيه إلى ركبتيه. ركبتيه is his knees. He came all the way to the front, and his knees were touching the knees of Rasulullah صلى الله عليه وسلم. Which tells us, in a gathering of knowledge, where is the best seat? It's not like a theater. In the theater, the best seat's all the way in the back. But in this, the best seat is in the front. And at the same time, he says, وَاسْنَدَ رُكْبَتَيْهِ إِلَى رُكْبَتَيْهِ, that his knees were touching the knees of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If two people are sitting, what is the only way that you can sit that your knees are touching? That you are on your knees in tashahhud. If you're crisscross applesauce, if your legs are crossed or you're leaning back, your knees can't touch. So we learned two things here. Number one, where is the best seat? All the way in the front. And that's why the khatib say, or the lecturers say, come closer, come closer, come closer. And you understand this complaint by the sisters. That we're all the way in the back, and like any masjid, there's always mic problems, and we end up not hearing. And at the same time, when a person is closer to the speaker makes eye contact, which is where the knowledge is. Where the companions say about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that when he would look at us completely, right? That he would turn his complete attention to us. And if a person is all the way in the back, again, the speaker is not making eye contact with him. And if a person is not making eye contact, you slowly, somewhere down the line, you break the connection. If I were to speak the whole lecture like this, and I'm not making eye contact, 5 minutes into it, everybody will get up and walk away. But when I'm looking at people, there is that difference. And this is why he comes and he sits close to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And even the way that he sits is a lesson for us, that he sits on his knees. That a student of knowledge, a person that wants to gain knowledge, he should sit in a respectful way. That they should have respect for the knowledge, they should have respect for the teacher, they should have respect for the books and the classroom, the setting itself. And he puts his knees on, his knees are touching the knees of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And then after, وَوَضَعَ كَفَّيْهِ عَلَى فَخِذَيْهِ. And there are two narrations of this. That one narration says that he put his hand on the thighs of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but the better narration is that he put his hands on his own thighs. Meaning, and this is actually a huge problem nowadays, that what is he not doing with his hands? If his hands are on his thighs, what he's not doing is he's not playing with his phone. He's not fiddling around with his fingers. He's not picking up and playing with the carpet. That person is completely focused. So this person is coming to us and teaching us what should a student be like. And every time we step through those doors, whether we call ourselves a student or not, we're a student. We're coming to gain knowledge. When you step through those doors at the time of Jummah khutbah, immediately this applies to you. That at the time of Jummah khutbah, forget your phone. At the time of khutbah, put your hands down. Don't fidget around, right? We have those fidget spinners. People had to do something with their hands, right? Stop fidgeting. Put your phone away, and he puts his hand on his own thighs. And he began to ask Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam some questions. And Umar he narrates, وَقَالَ يَا مُحَمَّدْ أَخْبِرْنِي عَنِ الْإِسْلَامِ. He said, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, oh Muhammad, tell me what is Islam? And Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, Al-Islam an tashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Islam is, number one, that you testify that there's no God but Allah. وَتُقِيمُ الصَّلَاةِ. And you establish prayer. وَتُؤْتُ الزَّكَاةِ. And you give zakat. وَتُصُومُ Ramadan. And then you fast in the month of Ramadan. وَتُحُجُّ الْبَيْتِ إِنِ اسْتَطَاعَ إِلَيْهِ سَبِيلًا. And you perform Hajj if you are capable to. 5 things. Now this person comes and he doesn't ask some deep, intricate question. That how much zakat will I have to give if I have life insurance and then if I have stocks? He didn't ask a difficult question. He asked a very basic question. And that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tells us that remember, go back to the beginnings. Why? Because that will help you. Remember and go back to the beginning. What are our fundamentals? Reflect on the fundamentals. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam tells him this, and he says, Sadaqta, you've spoken the truth. And Umar says, فَعَجِبْنَا, this was weird. That he asks a question, and then he tells, after he gets his answer, he confirms it and says, you're saying the truth. So he says, فَأَخْبِرْنِي عَنِ الْإِيمَانِ. What is iman? What is belief? And Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, belief is أَن تُؤْمِنُوا بِاللَّهِ. That you believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَمَلَائِكَتِهِ وَكُتُبِهِ وَرُسُولِهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ وَتُؤْمِنُوا بِالْقَدْرِ خَيْرِهِ وَشَرِّهِ. That iman is, so again, there are different pillars. You have the different pillars of Islam, which of course we know are 5. And if you look at these pillars have to do with actions. Then the next question is iman. So there's a difference between Islam and iman. There's a difference between a Muslim and a mu'min. A Muslim has to do with actions, a mu'min has to do with beliefs. So he says, what is iman, what is beliefs? And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam replies, beliefs is أن تؤمنوا بالله, that you believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وملائكته, and His angels, وكتبه, and all the books, ورسوله, and all the prophets, واليوم الآخر. And this was the thing that the Quraysh had an issue with. The Quraysh, they understood everything else, but the one pill, the hardest pill for them to swallow was وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ. Why? Because this requires you to get your act straight, because you will be asked about it on the Day of Judgment. وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ, and the Day of Judgment. وَتُؤْمِنُ بِالْقَدْرِ خَيْرِهِ وَشَرِّهِ مِنَ اللَّهِ. And that you believe that destiny, good or bad, is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَقَالْ, this person then says, صَدَقْتَ, you've spoken the truth. He says, فَأَخْبِرْنِي عَنِ الْإِحْسَانِ. Tell me, what is perfection? You told me what Islam is, you told me what Iman is, now tell me what is perfection. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam replies, perfection is that you worship Allah as if you can see him. And if you can't reach that level, then just remember that he can see you. Now, if you look at this part of the hadith, one of the most important lessons that we see that Rasulullah ﷺ doesn't say that you pray salah as if you can see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and if not, then you pray salah knowing that he can see you. But Rasulullah ﷺ says that you worship Allah in general, meaning that there are other types of worship besides just salah. When we think about worship, we think about standing up in the masjid and praying salah. But salah, worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us to worship him. Meaning our whole day can be an act of worship if we gain a couple of different qualities within ourselves. The quality of tawakkul, the quality of taqwa, the quality of sabr, and clean our heart and purify our hearts throughout the whole day. So here Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says that you worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as if you can see him. And I usually explain this to children like, it's when your mom is driving her minivan, and in one hand she has her phone, and the kids are jumping in the back, the seatbelt's off, and then immediately she sees a cop parked, and she stuffs her phone inside her hijab, she pulls down the seatbelt, closes it, and tells everybody, sit down, there's a cop up ahead, right? And everybody sits properly, and they drive perfectly. Why? Because they can see the cop. And if you can't see the cop, and if there is a camera there, right? So ihsan is driving as if you can see a cop there. But if you can't do that much, and remember that there is a camera, then at least slow down. Right? You can still keep that phone in your hand, the kids can still be jumping in the back, you can have your seatbelt off, but at least slow down. And this is Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how he explains ihsan. That you worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as if you can see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in front of you. It's like when you're working and your boss crosses by. You know your boss is on the floor. So at that time, you're going to close your Facebook. Minimize your ESPN. And if you can't work like that, then just remember that there's a camera. Right? That somewhere the boss is watching. So this is an explanation of ihsan. Then this person carries on and asks Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, فَأَخْبِرْنِي عَنِ السَّاعَةِ. Tell me, when is the final hour? And Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam responds, مَا الْمَسْئُولُ عَنْهُ بِالسَّائِلِ. That the one who is being asked, I don't have any more knowledge than you who is asking this question. I only know as much as you know. And this tells us a very deep thing about this dunya, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's nizam, the system. That if a person were to know when the person were to be tested, when he were to be held accountable. For example, you know that tax day is April 14th, that's tax day. So that's the day you get your books set. Before that, right, you ask an accountant what he's doing in November, he's killing flies. But come January, February, March, April, they don't have time to give to you, right? So if a person were to know when the final hour were to be, then they would goof off all their life and correct their life at the end of when its time comes close. But Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, no, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't create this world in that way. The Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created this world that it can happen at any time. All you have to do is be prepared. Your job is not to know when it's coming, but your job is to prepare for it. Be ready for that test. And this person then asked Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, tell me about is signs, the signs of the Day of Judgment. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam replies back that a lady will give birth to her master. Right? Again, these are not all the signs, but there are other signs as well. But the first sign is that a lady will give birth to her master, and we all know this at today's day and age. This is apparent to us. Now this sign is definitely here. If none of the other signs are here, this sign is definitely here, where a lady will give birth to her master, the children will boss around the parents. Right? I will not do this. Right? Don't walk with me. Park 10 feet, park 1 mile back so my friends don't see me with you. Right? I hear this complaint all the time, that I'm embarrassed of my parents. And the parents say, my children actually boss me around. They tell me to do this. They tell me to do that. Right? The next one, that you will see people that are barefooted. There are shepherds, and they will compete in building lofty buildings. Again, this sign is here as well. Open your Google Maps and look at the Middle East, and all you will see is skyscrapers. You'll see these huge skyscrapers that at one time these were barefooted shepherds. And now they're competing that, I need to have a even bigger, right? If you go to the Haramain, if you go to Makkah al-Mukarramah, there is the Makkah Towers. In front of the Makkah Towers, they had another structure that was there. And they broke that structure down. Why? Because it affected the view. It affected the view. The fact that it was housing Hujjaj and Mu'tamirin, forget that. It was affecting the view, and they broke it down. We want to make sure we have the most beautiful building and the largest buildings. Again, this sign is already here. And then Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Umar says, ثُمَّ انطَلَقَ. This guy, he got up and he left. فَلَبِثْتُ مَلِيًّا. And I waited a bit. And Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, ثُمَّ قَالَ يَا Umar. Umar, do you know who this person was? Who was this person? And Umar says that Allah and His Messenger know best. And the reason why this hadith is important, because it is a moment of contemplation and to reflect what is our religion and break it down. Break it down to the fundamentals. And Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says that person, فَإِنَّهُ Jibreel. He was Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam, and he came to teach you your religion. That if you were to reflect on our religion and break it down, this is all it is. If a person wants to know about Islam, a person comes to you and they're interested about Islam, and they tell me about Islam, if you go over this hadith itself, it will be sufficient. What is Islam? Islam is in Hadith Jibreel. That there are 5 pillars of action, there are 6 pillars of belief, there is perfection, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He prefers perfection in everything. There is the Day of Judgment, and the signs of the Day of Judgment that we don't know when the Day of Judgment is, and the signs that will come before it. I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us. Subhanallah bihamdi, subhanallah. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum.